all you wild serial killers out there. It's your favorite Midwest serial killers back here tonight for 31 Days of Horror. I am Sir Logan Myers. That's my good mate over there.
And I'm the horrendous Henry Hill, and yes, we are back once again. Ooh, it's a spooky season. It's in full effect. And Ryan Murphy has a new monster series that is currently on Netflix. This one is starring Charlie Hunnam. You remember him, of course, from Sons of Anarchy as Jax back in the day. This time he is portraying the legendary serial killer. His name is Ed Gein, and he is the basis of horror movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, among others, as this show dives into. And we are diving into this series for the 31 Days of Horror, and it's called Monster.
The Ed Gein Story.
You're working too fast.
I'm sorry, Mother.
Just go slow and steady. Take your time, sweet boy.
That's right. This brand new series. Everybody's talking about it. Since the release of this, I remember all the marketing coming out for this, like really pumping everybody up about this. I was really excited to check this out. Of course, this was like a anthology series produced by Ryan Murphy, of course, from American Horror Story. This is the third season. The first two that he did, Jeffrey Dahmer, Menendez brothers, and now, the famous Midwestern serial killer, Ed Gein, of course, from Wisconsin. And it really dives into the story. A young Ed Gein, played by Charlie Hunnam. We love him. Jax Teller, Sons of Anarchy. Completely different role. Completely transforms in this role as, like the really nice haircut, awkward, soft-spoken killer Ed Gein and his life, where he's at in the beginning with his mother, and where it really changes throughout and all the people he comes across.
The Butcher of Plainfield. I've always heard about Ed Gein and, heard how he made furniture out of skin
Yep.
and, but really never did any research like into why he was that way. And this series really shows you why and also dives into the movies that, his life and the murders that he committed and, his fascination with women and his mother in particular had to do with, pop culture and horror movies in general, like Psycho. I had no idea that he, got that idea from Ed Gein, with his mother being this huge, figure in his life and being overbearing, protective, and, really getting into young Ed Gein's mind and, making him think that, you don't need to be with any other women, it's always mother. But meanwhile, Ed Gein is repressed, of course. And as he's growing up, he has a lot of, feelings, you do when you're a young man. And it comes out in a different way because Ed's pretty twisted in his head. He has all these fascinations with skin. And you find out that he likes these comic books that have to deal with, World War II and extermination camps and the Nazis, exterminating the Jews and all the horrific events and like all these things in young Ed Gein's life really, contributed to him becoming this twisted killer and necrophiliac and just a really twisted individual. And Charlie Hunnam, in this role really does something different. We haven't seen him act like this before, and I really enjoyed this performance from him. He sheds his pretty boy image from Sons of Anarchy here and really portrays this, soft-spoken, almost like a Michael Jackson voice, guy. And eventually his mother dies. He digs her up, and as the story goes, there were some murders along the way. But this also dives into his, relationship with this girl that was pretty much the only one that gave him any attention, Adeline. And I'm not sure if that's part of the history. I think Ryan Murphy took some liberty here, adding in some things to Ed Gein's life, but it made this, limited series here of in this season of Monster really interesting.
Yeah, I would say it was really interesting for the most part. My only kind of nitpick about this, the last two episodes kind of dragged where I thought it could have ended, pretty good, but it added on
Mhm.
a little bit without going too much into any spoilers or anything like that. But yeah, Charlie Hunnam really transforms. He shed like I think 30 pounds for this role. Cut his hair off, nice short, clean cut. Had the eye with the prosthetics that looked like Ed
Mhm.
Gein and everything. They did that. And I thought he knocked it out of the park. Hello, mother. The
Mother. Yeah.
voice the entire time did get a little annoying after a while, but he's playing this character, I guess, unrecognizable compared to like Jax Teller, like completely
Yeah.
opposite. He went to some dark places in this, much like Evan Peters did with Dahmer and all the, countless actors out there, method actors, really diving into these roles. And I
Mhm.
thought he really knocked it out of the park. It was interesting. I learned a lot. I'm sure there's a lot more added to it. The crazy stuff he did, cutting off the skin, making furniture out of the skin, banging dead people, just stealing bodies from
Yeah.
graves, and just doing a bunch of crazy stuff. Mental health, especially back then, was I looked at like it is now. So it really has a lot to say. There's a lot of messages in this too, and I thought this was pretty solid season across the board. I was actually pretty invested in this from start to finish. Some really gruesome and gross scenes in this, and
Yeah.
my favorite part is how it all tied into all these movies, right? That were
Mhm.
inspired by Ed Gein, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, original Psycho with Alfred Hitchcock. I loved how they did that with
Mhm.
Anthony Perkins, the kind of side by side, how it incorporates into Ed Gein. Same
Yeah.
with Texas Chainsaw, Toby Hooper. I totally love those scenes. Silence of the Lambs,
Mhm.
Buffalo Bill,
Yeah.
Ted Bundy. I mean, just so much they throw at you, and it was just really well done across the board for the most part.
I agree with you. Yeah, I love that. Of course, being movie buffs, I think, all the fans of Cinephellas that love movies will love that aspect as well too, where it can detract a little bit, like it kind of covers Ed Gein for like most of the episode, and then the last like 10 to 15 minutes just kind of thrust you into like the set of Psycho and kind of show you that. But it's a cool juxtaposition just to show you like the effect of what Ed Gein did and how it translated over to horror movies and really changed cinema, starting with Psycho and moving through Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Toby Hooper, like how he got the idea, from the events of Ed Gein with the chainsaw, and then him being in line at the mall and imagining, getting through the line by butchering all the people. That was really well done, really creepy. And then all the way to the end, getting into even like Richard Speck and that whole twisted scene in those twisted episodes. It's Ryan Murphy here, so like he piles on the eroticism male on male, and he doesn't shy away from anything like that, as far as sexual deviancy here, like you mentioned, Charlie Hunnam and Ed Gein going to town on the dead body. That was just really, really unsettling. There's some really unsettling scenes in this, but this guy was really twisted, and seeing all the skin masks and the one scene that I'll always remember from this, I think, is the babysitting one, where he comes out and he's like, "You guys want to see a magic trick?" And he comes out and he's got the head, the lady's head. That was just creepy, and you can imagine being those kids and just being terrified. So who knows if that actually happened in history, but definitely Ed Gein was one of the most notorious, and this season and series really showed that. And Charlie Hunnam did an excellent job. We had Aunt Becky from Roseanne playing Mother. I thought she did a really great job. Going back and forth with him. That kind of reminded me of Dexter and his dad, kind of still communicating. Of course, Norman Bates and his mother. Obviously taken directly from that. So really interesting season, and just the last couple episodes were different than all the other episodes. So fell off a little towards the end, but I could see what they were going for. Tying in just basically all of the serial killers, moving forward, and it all starting with Ed Gein. So I overall really had a good time with this. I'd rank Dahmer a little higher, but overall I was pretty impressed by this season of Monster.
Same here, my man. I agree with everything you're pretty much saying here. The last two episodes dragged. I didn't like the girlfriend wife. I thought she was kind of annoying. Adeline, yeah, I thought she got annoying. His voice got a little annoying. Outside of that, everything else, the recreation of his house and like
Yeah.
the film sets and the movies back then are inspired to make all these great horror movies, the horror genre. And just seeing, Charlie Hunnam, mostly known as being the good-looking fellow, transforming into this serial
Hmm.
killer. I thought he did an excellent job. Preparing for this probably destroyed him mentally and go into some really, really messed up places throughout this series and what
Yeah.
Ed Gein did to people and bodies and just crazy, crazy stuff to think about this all happening. But yeah, they did a really great job recreating all the set design, costume design was incredible across the board. Whole setting of this spooky, the Midwest backdrop in this. And yeah, I had a really good time with 6 out of 8 episodes, I believe it was, something like that. So most of the season I really enjoyed. It was interesting seeing Anthony Perkins, Alfred Hitchcock, Toby Hooper, and all them really added an awesome layer to this. And I would agree with you, Dahmer. I liked a little more than this, but I still enjoyed the Ed Gein story. So with that being said, I'm going to give this season a 3.5 out of 5 Anthony Perkins hair pieces.
I too am going to give this season a monster, the Ed Gein story, the Butcher of Plainfield. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 mother hair pieces. Shh.
I thought the masks that he had in this show were scarier than Texas Chainsaw 3 and 4. Like those were
Yeah.
terrible. These were
Oh,
like
I
really
know.
horrifying that scene with the kids
Yes. Very
too.
good practical effects in this, I must say. Yeah, they were really realistic.
Yeah, it's creepy. I'm like, ooh, made me jump a few times. But
Yeah.
anyways, want to hear from all you wild horror fans out there. What did you like about Monster, the Ed Gein story? What didn't you like about it? What's your favorite season? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, check out these old ghouls on Facebook, X, and
Ooh.
Instagram, and our website, Cinephellas.com, for the latest, greatest TV, movie news, and horror reviews.
So where does Ryan Murphy go next in the monster story? Well, I already know the answer.
Night,
He,
Night
uh,
Stalker, or whatever it was.
well, I'm sure he's going to do that, but the next one is the story of
Lizzie
I think
Borden.
it's
Lizzie
Lizzie
Borden.
Borden. Yes, and Charlie Hunnam's going to have a part in that too, I saw. So Lizzie Borden, female this time, which will be a nice change of pace. So that'll be interesting. But who do you want to see after that one? Who would you like to see them do?
Richard Ramirez,
That would be creepy. Yeah,
Night
that would
Stalker.
be a good one. That would be a really good one. Remember from that documentary
It's
a
creepy.
couple of years ago? Yeah, that'll be a good one for sure.
Yeah, it has a really cool 80s backdrop, like the World
Hmm.
Series going on, pop culture, crime in LA. Just
Yeah.
a lot of stuff to it. So I'd love to see that.
Sure. Yeah, that'll be a good one for sure. Obviously, John Wayne Gacy is always popular. That'd be interesting. But I feel like Peacock and others have done a lot of John Wayne Gacy, so that might be kind of
Yeah.
played out. Maybe focus on some of the lesser known ones would be cool. But anyways, yeah, we had a good time with this season of Monster, and we both thought Charlie Hunnam did a good job. He sort of switched into his Irish accent there a few times, I noticed out of nowhere. But overall, man, he transformed for this and did a good job. And we had a blast watching this, and reviewing TV for the 31 Days of Horror is always fun, something new and fresh to watch. And this was a good binge for sure. We hope you guys check it out and let us know what you guys think after you watch it. So until the next 31 Days of Horror review, I am Uncle Henry Hunnam.
And I'm Uncle Charlie, and I'm signing out till the next review for 31 Days of Horror. Gee!